we're going to be losing a game, right? Whereas if we're under budget, we've got some room there saved, that's when we're going to get results, fitness perspective. And then protein, of course, is your daily building block. What that means really is it protects your muscle in conjunction with weight training. Because what we see in the research, no matter the method, keto, calorie tracking, GLP-1 medication, if you just diet down and you just focus on the calorie number and you don't focus on protein or strength training, as much as 30, 40, 50% of the weight you're losing day by day is muscle and bone. Really defeats the purpose. Like quality aging, I would argue, is just as important to preserve muscle and bone for function, how you look, perform, etc. So I know I'm preaching to the choir on that, but I want to get that out there. That's why we do the protein. Now, everything else is mainly, I mean, certainly we would look at fiber if there's some irregularity happening. And obviously for our colon health, digestion, gut health, it's probably a good idea to push that fairly high, 25 plus grams a day. But clean foods, meal timing, oh, don't eat after 8 p.m., supplements, all that stuff fits into that small last 2 to 5% when you get the other two things right. Okay. So how do you get those right? That's where we're headed. So first things first, you guys will all have a target because you're in the program. We've set this up intentionally, and it might differ a bit from what the math would suggest is optimal. And we've done that for a reason. I'll get to that in a second. But say your calorie goal is 1950 and your daily protein is 165 grams. That's your floor generally. We want to actually exceed that a little bit if we can, but we're happy if you hit that. Okay. So the calorie side, first things first. The only way to lose fat, lose weight, is to be in that deficit daily. So that doesn't mean you burn 2,400 calories from exercise. There's no way you could conceivably do that day after day. But your body has a basic amount of calories it burns just to stay alive. And now we add 8,000 to 10,000 steps to that. And then we add a strength training workout. So now our maintenance is upwards of 2,400 in this case. So that when we eat 1950, we lose a pound per week, right? 1 pound is represented by 3,500 calories. So if you're in a 500 calorie deficit for the day, equals out, full pound of fat per week is the target. That's sustainable, aiming for more than 1% per week. Oftentimes we're getting into that trap where a lot of muscle and bone is being lost as well. Okay. Early on, you'll lose some water weight, so it does fudge the numbers. But a pound or two per week is generally where we're trying to strive for. And again, any questions, just leave them in the chat for now, and then we can unmute. Yeah, Kathy's got a good tip there. Type 1, by the way, if I haven't lost you so far. I don't want to get too fast here. We've got some ones. We got a head nodding. Caden, 1. Appreciate that. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is the biggest thing I like to focus on is we have to create a deficit you can actually live with. Now, not for the rest of your life, because no one's going to be in a calorie deficit forever or eventually weigh 0 pounds. But a deficit you can live with long enough to get the result you want with accidental or intentional breaks along the way. So a good deficit is eating the most possible while still achieving the goal you want. So a little hungry before meals is probably a good sign. Not all day, not freezing all day, not chronically hungry all day. Energy and training are pretty consistent. You're seeing some strength gains in the gym, good sign. You're preserving muscle. Sleep, mood, you're not hangry and snapping at people. And again, like I talked about there, 1 to 2 pounds per week, roughly a half to 1% of body weight. And generally, if you're under 175 pounds in our featherweight category, 0.5% is all we want to see per week. So when you've gone too far is like constant hunger, you're Googling, you're like watching YouTube meal prep stuff, fancy recipes, your workouts are flat, your sleep is disrupted. Your big swings where you really strict, but you just can't help yourself from blowing it out on the weekends. And again, it feels like punishment. You're like craving the day it ends. We don't want that. Okay. This would get you faster results, but faster doesn't mean better. Okay. All right. Section 2 is the protein piece. So this ultimately decides what you keep along the way. The muscle is certainly priority Number two, next to losing fat, when it comes to the 1-2 punch we're after, what I find the biggest advantage this gives you is it keeps you fuller for longer than equal amounts of carbs or fats. And there's a reason for that. It burns more energy just to digest it. So as much as 30% of the calories from protein actually just don't count because there's that thermic effect. The meat sweats, essentially, right? You go to the Brazilian barbecue. Apologies to any vegetarian, vegan members on here. I see one or two. I'll point out. You're not going to a Brazilian barbecue, but same idea with plant-based proteins. It has a higher thermic effect. So you burn more calories digesting it than carbs or fat. So a small free win, it doesn't make a massive difference, but the thermic effect of eating of food is one component to metabolism, and you want that optimized, and that's where protein comes in. Okay. All right. So your number generally comes from this. So the science would say, in the bodybuilding community, would want you to eat 1 gram per pound of current body weight. That's largely excessive for most, unless you're just training like a real animal in the gym or you're on steroids that help with some of this. So goal body weight is generally where we set it as like a lofty target. So if you're 205, you want to get to 165, we set protein at 165, 165 grams a day. Not perfect math, but it gets into that kind of range where the science says you're optimized. Okay. And don't be alarmed if that seems a little bit higher than what we've set for you early on, or based off what we're seeing in your food logs, we tend to kind of nudge the number down just to make it a little bit more achievable. All right. Okay, so how to hit it. So I like, and Abby would say, just spread it out over your 4 square meals. One of those is generally just a snack, and try to keep equal amounts. Okay, because if you skip protein at breakfast, now you're chasing 165 grams, 205 grams in my case. That would be a tall order. So I try to get a good chunk of it first thing, my first meal. And now it's just about, balancing out the rest of their day. A snack could be any, protein shake or bar or whatever, or Greek yogurt with berries. We'll give you some ideas. But as long as your 3 square meals are, a third or a fourth of your goal, then you can mix in a snack to kind of nudge it upwards. So that's the most simple tactic. Not perfect. Some people like to kind of push a bit more into their last meal of the day, a little bit less early on. That's your prerogative, but we find this is the most sustainable approach. Part two is just think swaps, right? You're not trying to eat more and more chicken breast. You're trying to eat some things that you probably already eat, but a more protein-rich version of that. So the old staple, I'm not a big fan of Greek yogurt, full disclosure, but versus a regular yogurt, you're getting a lot more protein. I like to put a little bit of whey powder in that and mix it up, and it has more of you can make it flavored any protein powder flavor you have, but it tastes similarly, not exact, like say strawberry sweetened yogurt when you put strawberry powder in Greek yogurt. And a lot of you have tried that and it works. Whereas grabbing a latte, you can do, well, there are actually those ready-made drinks that have coffee and protein powder mixed in, but I generally just put like high protein milk in coffee because there's so much of those options nowadays, or I'll blend in a bit of protein powder. I would not scoop it in and try to stir. It's going to clump when it's hot coffee anyway. And just think every meal should have protein. You shouldn't be having a rice bowl with no protein source on it. Okay, that's going to really set you back with the whole balance. And granola bar versus protein bar. Again, chips can have their place in moderation if that's your snack of choice, but maybe you could have jerky. It might not be quite the same, roasted edamame beans or kale chips, but there's a way to go about this where you're swapping, not fully suppressing the craving, which can help. Anything to add to the list here? Awesome. I'd love to see some engagement in the chat. What you've swapped in your time here that's made, hitting your protein goal a lot easier. For one, they're pretty expensive, but like Quest chips, they come by the bag and you get a higher ratio of protein and you still get that, scratch that itch for something crunchy, that kind of thing. Okay. So Moving on from protein to how to hit your calorie goal without being overly hungry. I think the big takeaway is eat for volume, not just a number. Because if you try to fit in, a ton of processed food within your number, it's going to leave you wanting more. And you're not going to have that fullness factor that volume can really help for you, achieve for you, right? So there's a balance. We talk about the 80-20 rule. 20% of the time, I have my ice cream sandwich every night. Like having these things that give you that snack fulfillment, but not having every day, like playing food tracking Tetris with junk food just for the sake of it. And then it leaves you hungry and you're really struggling to stick to your numbers. Nice. Good tips. Protein bread, yes. And protein pasta. We've snuck that into the kids' plan. My kids are zero protein eaters. So the protein rich enriched pasta has been helpful for us. Chia pudding, okay. Yeah. Cottage cheese, go to. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, protein's kind of the flavor of the month, so you can get a lot of products that are enriched with it. I would still default to like whole foods, single ingredient where you can, but all these things have their place to make it a little bit easier. So with that in mind, volume means a lot of greens, big ass salads can really set your hunger on a lower trajectory. Obviously, lean protein, fruits and watermelons, very filling. Potatoes, probably the most filling food on the planet, at least carb wise. Soups, you gotta kind of watch the sodium with those, but those can be very filling without many calories. And maybe it's popcorn as a snack, smart popcorn. Whole bowl is 300 calories. That's the idea. What to keep an eye on is like the sneaky oil and butter that's in every dish. Try not to make your meals at home like they do in restaurants and just drown it in those because that's really gonna add up. A lot of people think of nuts as a healthy food, and they are, but in moderation, it's really hard to moderate. If you got mixed nuts by the handful, 3, 4, 500 calories, like nothing. There goes your daily deficit. I know we got lots of cheese lovers. That's a tough one. Again, you can get lighter versions and just account for it. Dressings, no one should be doing the full fat dressings nowadays. There's so many good alternatives health wise that are next to no calories. And then again, anything fried is kind of obvious there too. And we can talk about some of the dressings and sauces I've recommended in the past if people forget. Okay, so the sneaky calories, anything liquid, even alcohol, like this is a downer in summer, but even the calorie conscious ones, alcohol has 7 calories per gram. So one beer is a default 150 calories. Plus, it kind of shuts down your ability to burn fat until, the toxin is prioritized and removed from your system. So that can really slow you down. But so does juice, etc. The oils we already talked about. We already talked about the sauces, and I would swap those for, they're full of healthy ingredients, even the G Hughes ones. There's not a lot of artificial sweeteners, and some there's not any artificial sweeteners if that's not your thing. And they cut the calories by, 1/5. And lastly is the bites, licks, and tastes. So the kids' leftovers, the just ones, the tasting while cooking, all adds up, especially if you're in this initial phase where you're trying to lose fat. Every calorie counts. Okay, I haven't heard of those actually. Oh no, I have actually. I think I've seen these. So what you can see from the chat, the protein snack mix. I think I've got a bag of that actually from Costco. So okay, section 5. We're almost done here. Is the common mistakes. So where people stall is like really good for 5 days, 2 days where they go well over their calories, wipes out 5 good ones, or at least wipes out 3 to 4 of those 5 good ones, and then they're flat in terms of progress. The guessing game, especially early, if you don't have the knowledge, the experience, you haven't put in, the time tracking the real old-fashioned way, you've got to kind of earn that eyeball approach. And that's often why we're in the situation we're in is our eyes are always, smaller than our stomach. And it's easy to overeat. I'm still that way. Even though I understand what's in that piece of chicken just by eyeballing it, I still like to track when I'm focused on a specific result. Kathy mentioned this, skipping protein at breakfast becomes a scramble at night, and you're probably hungrier throughout the day. And watching the calorie cutting just for the sake of it, going too hard. And then lastly, reading the scale daily. We do like to see more frequent weigh-ins, but the only thing to really judge is the weekly trend versus previous weekly trend and giving it more than a week in some cases. You know, a true plateau is like really diligent to all of the above, and 2, 3 weeks go by and you're not seeing any measure of progress, then we have to adjust something or at least look a little bit deeper. Cottage cheese and cinnamon. Okay. It's been a while since I've done that one, but that's not bad. Yeah, I like it. So just a real example day with the aforementioned target. We talked about 1950. So Greek yogurt, berries, a couple eggs scrambled, a chicken, rice, and veggie bowl. The snack, protein shake and banana. You could make that your starting meal if you're really, stretched for time in the morning. Have this kind of as your evening snack. And then your standard meat and potatoes dinner, the biggest meal of the day, generally when you're more focused on food and you can sit down and enjoy it. Pretty simple. Okay. So that's it. Hit your two numbers most days. That's how we get results. Everything else is really just secondary. I know when you log into Instagram and TikTok, everyone talks about everything else because it gets views and hits, but this is really where you need to put blinders on and focus because that's going to drive 90% of your outcomes. Okay, let's open it up. Lots of good chatter in the chat, so feel free to unmute and share further if you'd like, or any questions. Let's do it now. Don't all jump at once. I know this is always a bit of a game, a staring contest at first. So. Might have to call on Diane. We got Janelle. What's going on? You're unmuted.
Oh,
Maybe not intentionally.
so I am unmuted now.
Oh yeah, you were frozen up there, but we're good now. Yeah.
I have an unstable network. I love creamy ice cream. And so I make a creamy, and I have one every night. And my creamy, if I make a whole, I can make a whole one and eat a whole one. It's 41, almost 42 grams of protein and 300 some calories. So with the cottage cheese and the Fairlife chocolate milk and either a whey chocolate powder, and I throw a tablespoon of mini chocolate chips or score bites into it, like it's decadent and more so enjoyable in the summer than the winter. But 7:30 every night, I'm making a ruckus in the house with my Ninja Creamy. And but I know I'm having it every day, and so I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything when I can have what I value as like a super big treat with 42 grams of protein. So it's
It's a
my
miracle
love.
of science, that machine. It's like an airplane taking off, though. You wouldn't want the kids sleeping to start it. Yeah. We have one of those. So you remember to freeze every night then, I guess. That's the problem. You have to wait for 16 hours or so, right? For it to.
So
No?
it's less than 8.
Oh, okay.
It's better if it's longer, but I'll make 5 on Sunday,
Mm,
and then
beautiful.
if
That's the way to
I'm
do it.
if I'm tight on calories or whatever, then I might only have one, and I'll split it into 2, weigh it and scoop it into a bowl. But I try and make sure I can eat a whole one every night.
Yeah, it's a miracle of science. I have one. I go through phases where I use it a lot and I don't, but that's a good idea to pre-freeze 4 or 5 for the week. And you respin it, right? It's not that great until the respin. I
Yeah, so
find
you
it's kind of
spin it
clunky.
once on the light
Yeah,
setting, and then you add more liquid, and then you do a respin. And then if you want to add mix-ins like the chocolate chips or something, then you put a scoop in it and you do a mix-in spin. Um,
right, right. It's got different
but
settings.
it's like, yeah,
Yeah, I know. It tastes
I've
honestly
played
like
with
ice
the
cream.
volumes of the milk and the cottage cheese and the vegan protein versus the whey protein, and I'm a chocolate holic, and so I, my husband says it tastes fake, but I think he's full of it. I think it tastes just perfectly fine. which
Yeah,
just
half the
means I
time
don't
taste is in our head,
care.
right? Yeah. He's probably just assuming it's, oh, this is healthy, so it's not going to taste good. Even though
Yeah,
I would think blind taste tests, it would be pretty close
yeah.
to actual ice cream. Sorry, Diane, you had a question?
Yeah, on the how much protein that you should have, is it, do you base it on the weight you currently are or the weight you want to be?
Yeah, the weight you want to be is the goal
Okay.
weight calculation. That
Okay.
works best for most. Usually, current weight is a bit ambitious. Not to say it wouldn't lead to
Right.
faster outcomes, but it's oftentimes harder
Okay.
from an adherence perspective. Yeah.
Okay.
And the net benefit isn't necessarily worth it either. So, yeah, if goal weight's 165, then 165 grams a day.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Any questions? Any tips? There's a lot of good tips in the chat if you want to elaborate on some of those. Let's see here. Okay, Lori talks about flourish pancake mix. Kodiak is good. I actually DIY my own with regular pancake mix, but half the scoop is protein powder, and it still comes out nice and fluffy. And obviously that helps the macros. So if you don't have the specialty pancake mixes, then try that. I say it works pretty well. Let's see. Anyone else? Okay,
Yeah, I
good.
just mentioned what I do every day is I have a glass of milk, lactose-free, 18% protein, whatever, milk, and then I put a scoop of protein powder in there, and I have one of these mixers that, and it really tastes fabulous. I mean, it's sweet and it's foamy and it's a nice treat.
There you go. That's another way to do it. If you don't have a creamy machine, use the mixer. Jackie says, yeah, serving a coconut whipped cream. There's light whipped cream we have at our house now that you can put on pancakes. I think it's like 10 calories for 4 tablespoons or something. Next to nothing. And it seems like it gives it some volume and taste. That's a good one. I haven't tried the coconut whipped cream, but I certainly will look into that. And protein tortilla wraps. Yeah. So again, anything that has protein on the label, just double check the back label because sometimes it's just marketing lies. But in that case, yeah, they probably topped up the protein with something. Typing and talking is not being successful here. All right. Anyone else? Okay. Going once, twice. All right.
I
We'll
hope
leave it
your
there
daughter
then.
has a great
Oh,
graduation.
oh yeah, yes. I'm headed there at 1 o'clock, 1:30.
Good.
So I will be crying, be a grown man crying in the front row, and I'm okay with that. It's only comes around once. I can't wait for high school grad. That's gonna be even worse. But yeah, moving on to middle school is
Wow.
I don't know. Felt like yesterday was kindergarten, but they all say that. It's very cliche. Blink and you miss it. So I'll be there. All right, guys. Good stuff today. Thanks for showing up. Hit those caps. We'll talk soon.